All right, let's just jump right into one of the biggest, deepest questions you can possibly ask. What is consciousness actually made of? It's kind of a big deal, right? I mean, it's the one thing you can be absolutely positive exists, but it is still the greatest mystery in all of science. And seriously, just for a second, think about that. I don't mean your physical brain, the organ itself. I mean you. That private, inner world of thoughts, colors, feelings, and memories that you are living in at this very moment. What is that? Because this is the heart of the puzzle. On one side, you've got the brain. We can describe it, right? It's a bunch of neurons, it's electrical signals, it's a bath of chemicals. It's a biological machine. But then, on the other side, there's your actual experience. The rich, undeniable taste of chocolate, the vividness of the color red, that bittersweet feeling of nostalgia. How on earth does the stuff on the left create the feeling on the right? So here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we're going to define what philosophers call the hard problem. Then, we'll check out how scientists are tackling it with theories about the brain being a kind of information engine. And finally, we're going to get a little weird and explore a totally radical idea. What if consciousness is just part of the universe itself? Okay, so let's start with the problem itself. It's all about that gap, that huge, seemingly impossible divide between the physical brain and the private world of your mind. This puzzle got a name, a really famous one, from philosopher David Chalmers. He called it the hard problem of consciousness. See, the easy problems, and they're not easy at all, are things like, how does the brain process vision? Or how does it control our muscles? The hard problem is, why does any of that have to feel like anything from the inside? That inner feeling, that what it's likeness, has a name, qualia. The philosopher Thomas Nagel really hit the nail on the head. Science, by its very nature, is objective. It tries to describe the world from a third-person view that works for everyone. But your consciousness is the exact opposite. It's completely subjective, tied to your unique first-person point of view. So how can an objective description ever capture a subjective reality? And just to be clear, this isn't some fringe idea that a few people are kicking around. Not at all. A massive 2020 survey of professional philosophers found that over 62% of them agree that the hard problem is a real, legitimate issue. It's a central debate in modern thought, and it's forcing people to come up with some pretty creative answers. So if that's the problem, what are the scientists doing about it? Let's switch gears from the philosophy to the science. Right now, there are two major theories that treat the brain like a super advanced information engine, each with a very different take on how it creates awareness. So you've got two main camps. In one corner, you have global workspace theory, or GWT. This idea is that consciousness works like a spotlight in a theater. Information from all over the brain gets sent to a global workspace, and whatever hits that spotlight gets broadcast out, and bam, you become conscious of it. In the other corner, you've got integrated information theory, or IIT. It says, no, it's not a broadcast. Consciousness is about how much information a system can weave together into one single unified whole. For IIT, consciousness is that complex, integrated structure. And this is the really cool part. These aren't just abstract ideas. A massive scientific collaboration was set up to pit these two theories against each other. They ran a series of direct, adversarial experiments, basically a scientific cage match, to see which theory's predictions actually matched what was going on in people's brains. The results were, well, they were fascinating and kind of a mixed bag. First up, a point for global workspace theory. When the researchers tried to figure out what general category of object someone was looking at, like telling a face apart from a house, the data really supported GWT. They saw a late, widespread broadcast of activity across the brain, exactly like the theory predicted. So, score 1 for GWT. But it wasn't a clean sweep. Integrated information theory came back and scored two really crucial points of its own. First, when they tried to decode more specific details, like which way a face was pointing, the brain activity was a much better fit for IIT's model. And second, and this might be the big one, was the timing. IIT says the brain signature for consciousness should last the whole time you're aware of something. And that's exactly what they saw. The brain activity stayed stable and consistent, which is the huge point for IIT. So the debate is far from over, but you could say round 1 went to IIT. Just barely. But even with all these amazing experiments, there's still that nagging question, isn't there? do these theories really explain the feeling of seeing red? That persistent gap has led some thinkers to ask a really wild question. What if we've got it all backward? What if consciousness isn't something complex brains produce, but something fundamental that brains just tune into? This is the big idea behind something called panpsychism. Now, I know the name sounds pretty out there, but the concept is actually pretty simple. It suggests that experience, some super basic, primitive form of it, isn't a special thing that just pops into existence when you have a brain. Instead, it's a fundamental feature of the universe itself, woven into the fabric of reality, just like gravity or mass. And before you write this off as some new age idea, you should know this concept has some serious historical street cred. Versions of it go all the way back to the ancient Greeks, to philosophical giants in the 17th century like Spinoza, and even to famous thinkers like William James. The reason it's making a comeback today is because a lot of serious scientists and philosophers think the old ways of explaining consciousness just aren't working.
Now, it is absolutely crucial to be clear about what panpsychism is not saying. It does not mean that rocks are thinking deep thoughts or that your desk is worried about deadlines. The idea is way more subtle. It suggests that the most fundamental building blocks of our reality, maybe an electron or a quark, have an unimaginably simple, primitive form of raw experience. From this point of view, our rich, complex human consciousness isn't created from nothing. It's just an incredibly sophisticated combination of these tiny, fundamental bits of experience, organized by evolution over billions of years. Which brings us right back to where we started. What is your inner world made of? Is it the wet biological stuff of neurons? Is it an abstract pattern of integrated information? Or is it something woven into the very fabric of the cosmos, something your brain has simply learned to tap into?
The truth is, we don't have the final answer. But here's the most profound part of this whole mystery. Your own consciousness. The one and only thing in the entire universe that you cannot possibly deny the existence of, is also the one thing we are furthest from being able to truly explain. And that is a puzzle we're thinking about.